Welcome to episode 3 of the LAN Partners podcast. My name is Connor, and with me is Matt
Hello.
and Dave.
Oh.
On today's episode, Matt will be giving us a review of Planet Coaster on the PC. Dave and I are going to talk a little The Order 1886. I'm going to give you my impressions of Yakuza 0. E3 is right around the corner, so we're going to share what we think should happen at E3 and what we want to see happen at E3. Talk a little news and finish off the episode with our top 3 couch co-op games. If you like what you hear, please find us on Facebook or Twitter, send us a message, ask us questions. If you want to hear our opinions on games, we'd love to hear from you. If you have some input, maybe a list idea, something like that, we'd always love to hear from our listeners. So please find us, message us. You could send me an email, thelandpartners@gmail.com. Find us on all those social media platforms with that The LAN Partners name. So please find us. You could also find us on iTunes now. Just hit that subscribe button, and those episodes will be uploaded to you right away, right when it's finished. We will be recording every Wednesday night. That way, if you hit that subscribe button on iTunes, you will get that episode like the next day on Thursday. Or you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud, any of those social media platforms. So I have a problem, guys. What I like to do is I like to go to GameStop and just buy 3 or 4 games, $20, $60, whatever, and come home, play one game an hour, then play another game the next night for an hour, play another game the next night. The problem is with that is that I find out when I bought a $50 or $60 game, after playing it for about an hour or two, and I'm kind of skipping around, I'm like, this $60 game, this is not really sitting right with me. I should not have spent $60 on this game. What I want this podcast to be is a way for listeners to not make the mistakes I make or Dave or Matt makes. I want you to be able to ask us and hear what we say about games and say like, oh, I was going to buy that game for $60, but after their experiences, maybe I'll just wait and buy something else a little cheaper or just wait for that price to drop. So that's all I'm trying to just relate with the listeners on this podcast. So let's go ahead and Matt's going to bat lead off here and start us off with a review on Planet Coaster on the PC.
All right, here we go. So yeah, Planet Coaster came out last November 2016, and it's developed by Frontier Developments. So these are actually the same team, or partially the same team, that worked on the Roller Coaster Tycoon games. So most people, I would say, are at least familiar with the name of Roller Coaster Tycoon, whether or not you've played it or not. And Planet Coaster is not that much different from Roller Coaster Tycoon, so it's still the same, build your own amusement park, build your own rides, build your own roller coasters, get the people to come into your park, find ways to keep them enjoying the park. You can put all the food stands and the drinks and the entertainment and have just things for them to do around the park as well as ride the rides, obviously. And then, so part of my review is, obviously, I'm going to talk about what I like and don't like about the game. So far, I played about 25 hours. There is a story campaign to the game, but it's not much of a story. It's more so you going into a park that's kind of not a pre-made park, but they're sending you into a park of their choosing and giving you objectives that you have to complete in order to get either a bronze, silver, or gold on that park. And then once you get a gold, that unlocks the next park so you can move on. So, and that's just different objectives like get 1,000 people in the park or build 2 roller coasters or anything like that. So I haven't spent too much time on the solo part. I've actually been playing just the more sandbox free mode where you have unlimited money, unlimited funds to do whatever you want with the game. And I think that's probably where people are mostly going to be at, just because that brings the most creative side out of the game, I think. And so part of some of the things I liked about the game is that I like this podcast is about. The whole theme of this podcast is that we're guys who have full-time jobs, have families, wives. I'm getting married in September. I live with my fiance. So this is a game that we actually played together. So it's not that you can necessarily co-op the game, but we like to make a park where she works on part of the park in her own way, and then I work on another part in my own way, and we'll kind of take turns watching each other play and, just give different suggestions or ideas of what we want to do. So that's a like for me, because that, instead of me having to compartmentalize hanging out with my fiance and playing games, I can do the same. We can hang out together and play a game at the same time. So that works out really well for me. Second one is the game looks beautiful. The game looks very well. I know we're going to have a separate podcast more about PC specific things, but I do have a pretty beefy PC, so I can play with all the settings turned all the way up to ultra. Game looks great. All the building mechanics, putting the coasters in, putting everything in, setting everything up works very well. Haven't had very much trouble with putting in roller coasters, building roller coasters, anything like that. The other big thing that people are going to look out for is the Steam Workshop. So basically you can take what other people have created on their own time, their own kind of modifications, if you will, and place those into your game and do what you want with them. So you can find thousands and thousands of extra options of things you want to put into your park that are not already in the game. Some of the things that I did not like about the game is that I've done a lot of research because I have a pretty good PC, like I said. The performance when your park becomes full drastically drops. So I'm talking 60 or more frames per second when I'm first starting out and getting about halfway through the park. But as it's filling up, it's dipping below 30 frames per second, and that's on my beefy PC. So I don't know if that's something they can fix with future patches or if that's something that, we kind of have to just live with. But that's definitely something I don't like. The next thing that I don't really like is the path making. So obviously when you build a ride, you have to make sure there's a queue line so people can get onto the ride, and then a line for them to get off, or a pathway for them to get off the ride. Some of the rides, the way they're built, you can only put the entrance or exit on certain places of the ride that the game restricts you to, and sometimes they're just placed in these really funky ways that make it very hard and confusing for you to place pathways to get people onto the ride and off. So that's definitely going to take up some extra time. That's kind of frustrating. And then the last thing I don't like too much, which you can take or leave it. Some people might not mind, but it's more of my eye. The loading time to get into a park once you've built it up really high takes a very long time. Dave would laugh. I can kind of compare it to a GTA type load time, where it's taking close to 3 to 5 minutes sometimes. Where
I don't know that anything really compares to a GTA.
So depending on what's in your park and what you got going on, loading up can take a very long time. So like I was saying, I got 25 hours on the game right now. Definitely going to continue playing. I think what I want to plan to do, I talked to Connor about this, was maybe throwing up a couple screenshots of the park that me and my fiance have been working on up on our Facebook page. So, and maybe I'll give it to Connor too to put it up on Twitter, and we can kind of show that off a little bit for you guys to get an idea of what we're talking about. Final review, I'm going to say 9 out of 10. I know I have some dislikes on there, but I think that the overall enjoyment of the game kind of takes precedent over some of those gripes that I was talking about. So it's a really fun game. If you have a decent PC that you think can run it, then that would be a great choice for kind of another roller coaster tycoon type game.
So this game was made by the same developers, or part at least?
It was.
Wow,
it was.
I did not know that. I thought it was a completely different team. Like what was that other one? Simcoast? What was that other like roller coaster?
Maxis, I think.
No,
was it Max? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think what happened was with this team, the original team was with Roller Coaster Tycoon, and then Roller Coaster Tycoon decided to go mobile, I think, and then this team was not for that, so they decided to disband and just create their own studio with the same name, but then create their own kind of Roller Coaster Tycoon, even though it's called Planet Coaster.
Gotcha. All right, well, moving on to another platform, the PS4. We're going to be talking about The Order, which was released in February of 2015, a game developed by Ready at Dawn. Now, Dave, looking at Ready at Dawn's works in the past, this seems to be one of their most ambitious projects. Just kind of going through them real quick. A game called Daxter, which I'm not even familiar with. But then they released 3 God of War games for Sony handheld devices. So The Order is one that really sticks out on this developer's kind of resume. So, Dave, tell us a little bit about The Order.
So The Order kind of puts you in this fantasy/historical setting where you are one of the Knights of the Round Table and are combating these evils that are going on in the world. There's a lot of underlying religious themes, and it really connects to like that historical setting of, the actual Knights of the Round Table and things like that. So I like stuff like that. I like things that look at history of like almost a parallel universe or alternate universe. I've actually been hoping that Call of Duty, instead of making 7 more games about World War II, eventually goes back to doing something original or creative in any way, shape, or form, and does like a parallel universe thing. Not that I don't love, seeing Nazis fighting Americans and allies over and over and over and over and over again, but I mean, it's just, I appreciated that about the Order, that you're going to go and give me a little bit of history, but you're going to show me maybe an alternate universe version of it, maybe mix in a little bit of, I'm not going to lie, I felt a little bit Twilighty at times, which might not be a bad thing for you if you're into that type of thing. And I got an open mind, so I really enjoyed it. I don't want to give away too much of the storyline. Just know that you are awesome, and you're part of the Knights of the Round Table, and you're fighting baddies, and it's awesome.
So what did you like about this game?
So my likes about the game are the graphics were kind of like the tech demo, I feel like, for PS4. It's one of probably the better looking games on there. Now, granted, I'm not a huge PS4 guy. I have one and I enjoy it. I think it's a great system, but I haven't dabbled in as quite as many games as Connor and Matt. This game I know was critically acclaimed for being good looking, and I think it is. I think it's a really good looking game. And they were so cocky about their good looking game that they put little trinkets that you can pick up in your hands as Galahad and just kind of examine them and flip them over and look at the back of the items. And they have no purpose towards the actual story or
if
anything.
you didn't say that, I was gonna say it. So I'm glad
they have no, yeah, they have no, most of them have absolutely no connection to the story, but you're like, wow, that photo has a nice shine to it. That reminds me of a real photo. So there's that. Like I said before, the story is really interesting. I like the whole Knights of the Round Table thing. I think the game length, a lot of people were saying it was one of the shorter games, and some people didn't like that. I thought it was a perfect length because I never hit that point where I thought to myself, okay, this game needs to end right now because I want to move on to something else. I felt like it ended right at the perfect time. I didn't even mind that it left the door open for a sequel because I was actually, and I talked to Connor about this, I was excited to play a sequel, even though it now appears that they're moving on to other types of games. And I think that it could have been a really strong sequel because I really enjoyed the main character of that game, and I actually thought the side characters were pretty interesting. There's the wisecracking handsome guy. There's the very angry, masculine female character who he has kind of a thing. It's just it's a great game in my opinion.
Yeah, a couple things that I liked. Well, a lot of what you said, I thought the setting was really cool. The one thing you didn't touch on was the weapons. I thought the weapons were really creative, really different from anything that I would have expected out of this kind of game. Like the weapons kept changing throughout the whole story, and that kept it interesting. The cutscenes obviously were amazing. They even do the widescreen where you got the black bar across the top, black bar across the bottom, where it's like you're watching a movie. I think the whole game is in that, not just the cutscenes. I think it looks like
felt
that
cinematic
the whole time. So I'm going to jump into my dislikes just because you kind of hit on some things that you liked that were my dislikes. You said the length of the game is something that you liked. I didn't like the length of the game only because they gave you so many cutscenes throughout the game where you felt like the length of the game just wasn't enough. Like you felt like half the game you were spent watching cutscenes, and that really bothered me because the cutscenes were so good, so I didn't want them to take away from the cutscenes, but I wanted more content in between those cutscenes. A lot of it was walking from place to place, inspecting those items that you were talking about for no purpose whatsoever. But that's, if they're going to do those things, make the game longer. Give me more of the combat then if we're going to be walking from area to area and watching 5-minute cutscenes. Another dislike I had was there wasn't enough of the cool. Like, there was, were they wolves or some sort of thing taking over where people turned into like wolf creatures, something like that. Lycans, yeah, that's what they're called. And there was not enough of that. Not enough of the cool. Those things were awesome to fight, crazy fights, but just there weren't enough of it. Quick time events, too many of them for me. It was a little bit too much. Like I said, with the length of the game, if you're going to give me a bunch of quick time events, make the game longer so the 6-hour game isn't me hitting a button, watching a cutscene, hitting a button, and then having 2 fights against those Lycans. So that's what my dislikes were. Dave, what did you dislike about this game?
Well, I think you kind of we're kind of almost like opposite on what we liked and didn't like. You want more gameplay. I thought the gameplay might have been the weakest part of this game. I actually enjoyed that it was more of like a movie because again, I got really into the setting and I got really into the dialogue between characters and the plot twists and all sorts of stuff. I really like that. I thought maybe the gameplay was the weakest part of the game, and it wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But I want to mention some very specific things. For example, the insane artificial intelligence accuracy with the insane weapons that they had. I remember there was a part where I was stuck on a stairwell and I was getting blasted by these guys with crazy amounts of armor and shotguns. And when the second I would peek out of cover, I'd just get blasted right in the face, and then I'd have to replay the part. And I did that probably 2 or 3 times.
I know there's one segment where you're on a roof or something where the same thing happens.
Same deal. Yeah, and you're looking down and oh my goodness. And then there's another part where there's flame thrower guys that throw Molotovs at you and you are literally getting set on fire every couple seconds. And the positioning that you take, some of the actual design of the level has you in a spot where like if you are in one certain corner of that map and they start attacking you while you're in that corner, because they're so accurate with their weapons, you are not moving to another part of that map, and now you are in the worst spot where if they throw a Molotov, you are cooked and you know it. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, it's not terrible gameplay, but I found myself wanting to get out of some of the gameplay parts and back into. I enjoyed the actual exploration of the world because, and I hate, I don't dislike. I don't think Grand Theft Auto is a bad game. I just think that it's dull. So I thought it was much more interesting going through this city that was not a contemporary city with the same windows and the same building sides and the same stairways that lead up to the doorways. I enjoyed actually flying around these little cities and doing all the crazy somersaults and stuff and watching the cape fly behind me, and it had a certain, like, I don't want to say charm to it because I usually only use the word charm when I talk about Nintendo, but it had a kind of like a almost a charm to it. Like it had a style that was very unique.
Yeah.
So props to that. It was kind of like a machine mixed with, I don't know. I don't know how to describe the style of that game. Like high tech
different.
stuff and an old time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was different. What did
Yeah.
you? So what was your overall rating of this game?
I believe I gave this one, and if I didn't, shame on me. It had to be at least an 8 or a 9. I must have put on that list because I really, really enjoyed the game. I don't want to watch a movie that's made out of this game because I like the character as he is in the game. I like Galahad as he is in the game, and I like the side characters as they are in the game. I do not want to see a Hollywood recreation of this, but I would like to play a sequel to the game. Um, Unlike The Last of Us, I don't really need a Last of Us sequel, but
Yeah, I thought overall I gave it a 6.5 only because of those kind of dislikes I had for it, but I would recommend anybody listening to play that game if you own a PS4. I think even though I gave it a 6.5, it's something you have to see. It is a lot of fun. It's very short, and I'm sure it's no more than $10 at GameStop right now. You can go out if you got a free weekend, play it Friday night, Saturday night, boom, it's done. Trade it back in, get the credit, and you've probably only spent $3 by the end of that transaction. So moving on to a game I'm playing right now, Yakuza 0 on the PS4. I talked a little bit about this last week, but I just kind of want to touch base on that. I'm about 12 hours in, 13 maybe, and what happens in the game is you play as two different characters, and there's these two overarching storylines set in two different parts of Japan, and I'm just dumbfounded about how good this game is right now. It's amazing. I can't wait to play more. I think it's about 30, 40-hour game. You could turn it into even more if you want to. There's plenty to do. But if you are thinking about buying this game for $60, do it and go get it now and play it. It's definitely worth your money. I'm only 12 hours in about, and I got my money's worth already, and I spent it at full price. So it's definitely a game you want to go out. Once I finish it, I'll have a more in-depth review on that. But for right now, I can't really say a whole lot because I'm only a couple hours in. So E3 right around the corner, coming up in June 12th
Sir.
or June 13th to the 15th, I believe. So who do you want to see have a big E3, Dave?
I mean, I think that a lot of people are either rooting really for or really against Nintendo. To take something that you were saying throughout the week, they're kind of under the microscope, I would say. Nintendo is, and they are the people that the company everyone's watching. I don't know that anybody's super convinced that I know of that the Nintendo is the real deal. I'd say my friends are split pretty 50-50 on it. I want to see virtual console, and I want to see apps like Netflix and Twitch, and I want to see more first party games because they're my favorite kind. Let's get some Metroid shown, and let's get some Smash Brothers on stage. I know they're not going to be on the big stage, but they have said they're going to have booths set up, so I'm hoping we see some of that.
So you want to see
And
more first-party Nintendo? Is that what you said?
I can't get enough of first party Nintendo. Yeah, show me Metroid because I really want to see another Metroid game and Smash Brothers. I will. We talked about this, I think, in the last episode. I would buy a sort of Smash Brothers Deluxe if you want to compare it to Mario Kart.
Matt, what are you looking to see out of Big Three or Big? What are you looking to see out of E3?
I think, to what Dave was saying, I think that Nintendo has got to be, from a business standpoint, kind of the most on the hot seat, just because the Wii U did not do well. Even though we all have a Wii U and we like our Wii U, it just didn't do well commercially. So I think for the Switch, they just need to start showing some games, first party and third party. They need to show some third party support to get some other people on board that maybe don't care as much about the first party games. But I think
two people on this podcast right now.
So yeah, Nintendo, I think from a business perspective, I would like to see them do well just because I love Nintendo too, but I just hope that they can do something to kind of bring that excitement back for me. And then the other one I would like to see is Microsoft, because I feel that Microsoft just doesn't have a lot of games right now, first party games. They're kind of the opposite of Nintendo, right? They have all these third party games, but they're not doing well with their own first party games, I feel like. So I think, and I know I just said I sold my Xbox One, I traded it in. So I'm ready to see Microsoft kind of turn things around. And I am a big PC player. So with the Xbox, kind of their Xbox Play Anywhere type games that they're coming out with now, where you can, if you own it, you can play on PC or on your Xbox. I really like that idea a lot. So if Microsoft can show more games that are coming out in the future, something I can be excited about, then I can definitely get behind them. And Sony, to me, I love Sony. Me and you, Connor, we love Sony. I know Dave likes to call us Sony fanboys, which I don't hate. So I think they're pretty good in my mind, but obviously I'm always excited to see what they have next in store.
Well, here's the thing about being Sony fanboys. We're Sony fanboys because Sony is pumping out all these first-party games that force us to play on our PS4,
Right.
where Xbox isn't doing that. I want to play Xbox One. My thing I want to see out of E3, I want to see more first-party Xbox games, and I want to see third-party Switch games. That's just me, because I want to play the Xbox. It's a great machine. Yep. I want to play it, and Xbox is giving me no reason to play it right now. And like Sony, they're good. I mean, I have plenty of first-party games. I'm not worried about it. But I know Dave thinks that Microsoft is completely peachy right now because of their new console coming out. But to me, it's just, I'm not going to go out and buy the console. I don't care what they're doing with this console. I want to see first-party games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Microsoft, just in general, whenever you come out with a new console, you're going to have interest in, and we were kind of talking about it throughout the week, but, good or bad, when the Scorpio hits the stage, you are going to hear about the Scorpio, whether you want to hear about it or not. And it's going to get a big draw for Microsoft. It's going to, I think, throw a spotlight onto the things that they both do right and wrong. And although they haven't come out with any new first-party games, like, Recore, I haven't played it myself, but I haven't really heard much about that. I didn't even know it launched at any point in time until I read a couple of reviews that said it was terrible. And then Overdrive, I'm not sure what the whole idea with that was. Maybe appealing to all the rollerbladers with mohawks nowadays. I don't know,
there's a lot of guys exist. There's a lot of them.
So I don't know. Maybe they went back in time and asked Disco Stu from The Simpsons, about what he thought would look really cool in the game. But I didn't really resonate with me So, but the Scorpio itself is really cool. And actually, Matt, you're kind of in the market for one if they do show something nice because
Yep.
you got rid of that Xbox One, so you were not going to feel like you're repurchasing something.
But he got
You
rid
got
of
the
the
4K
Xbox
TV.
One because of the lack of first-party games. So him buying the Scorpio is still
I need
running in
games.
place. He's running in place at that
However,
point.
however, it's going to be the only console that can run his games in native 4K, and that's all the third-party games that come out for Sony are going to be coming out for Xbox One. I'm not sure about, Nintendo. I know that Unreal Engine 4, I don't know if you saw this breaking news today, but Unreal Engine 4 is now compatible with the Switch, so they're going to have Epic games on the Nintendo Switch. Not Epic as in great. I mean, obviously that's going to happen, but Epic as in the company, their games are going to come to the Switch hopefully. And with Unreal Engine 4, you put that on all consoles. It was kind of like EA tried to do with Frostbite engine and all that kind of stuff. You make that engine, you give it to a bunch of developers, they make games for your system. And right now, I really, if you ask me, if you have a game that comes out for a Sony product and for a Microsoft product, I'm just going to end up buying it for the one that I think is going to play it better. Right now, that's the PS4 Pro, but that's because the Scorpio is not out yet. Once the Scorpio is out and you got these people who collect consoles, kind of like we do in this podcast here, you're going to have people who now have a choice. Do I want to buy the new Call of Duty for my PlayStation 4 or my PS4 Pro, who is going to upscale to 4K? Or, the likelihood of these companies releasing these games in native 4K is very high right now because now with consoles more like PC and especially with Microsoft with their PC crossplay, their Play Anywhere program, Matt kind of touched on that. You're going to get more games that are native 4K. So I don't think Microsoft's hurting at all. And Sony, I mean, I don't know, man. What do you guys want to see specifically from Sony? Because I'm sitting here like, I play anime games on my PS4 because everything else I play on my Xbox. What are you guys looking for from Sony at this thing?
I'm not looking for anything from Sony. I mean, they've already got Last of
What?
Us 2 lined up. They got God of War 4
Yeah, I want
lined
to see
up.
more God of War.
I
I
don't
love
need anything.
Sony. I don't want to see anything.
I don't need anything right now. I'm good from Sony. I just there's speaking of Sony, heading into the news, big story that just developed earlier this week. Red Dead 2 delayed
Yeah.
until 2018. It was supposed to come out late this year.
Yep.
Matt, how do you feel about that?
I think here's the debate. The debate is always: do you want a game to come out when they say it's going to come out, and then need a first day 10 gig patch or something, or multiple patches after it releases, or do you want them to just delay the game a few months and then when you pick it up, it's hopefully at kind of where they wanted it to be in the first place? I'm on the side of being okay with the delay. Obviously, it's frustrating. I love the first Red Dead. We played the old Red Deads before Redemption came out, Red Dead Revolver. So I think it's okay with me that they're delaying it if they're going to make it better, if they're going to make sure there's less bugs or glitches or things like that.
Smaller
But
load times,
obviously,
maybe.
yeah, some loading time fixes. But obviously, it's a hit. I think a lot of people were expecting that one, especially because they were trying to have it come out around holiday this year. So I don't know. I think it's tough, but I'm okay with it if it makes the game better.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. It's gonna be good no matter what.
Yeah.
So let's close this episode out with our top 3 couch co-op games. I'll start us off this week. My number 3 will become a little bit of a shocker to you guys. I don't think you're going to be expecting this. This is going back all the way to the Super Nintendo. My buddy Kevin and I used to always
Ooh.
play this game. It is Zombies Ate My Neighbors. That is a
Wow.
classic co-op game. It's designed to play co-op. There's 2 characters. You could go around together, play. It's the most fun you could have on a Super Nintendo playing co-op. It was great. Matt, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is also a shock. I don't think many people even know about this game, but it's called Overcooked.
Sunset Riders. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sunset Riders. It's called
Boom.
It's called Overcooked. So basically, you're chefs and you have to make meals for this restaurant, but it's all these wacky, zany like obstacles in your way, and things are moving around on conveyor belts, and you have to work together to try to get all the dishes out, and you only get about 2 or 3 minutes per level. It's just really crazy, frenetic fun, and I think it's an awesome game.
Dave?
Awesome. Mine, I mean, I don't want to say it's a shocker because this game is kind of implied by the name. Army of Two, Devil's Cartel is the one that I'm going to pick. And
Wow.
I'm kind of biased because I didn't play the first one, or I think this is the third one. I didn't play the first or the second one. I guess there were characters that people got attached to in those games. I didn't get attached to anybody. I just joined in at Army of Two, Devil's Cartel. And my wife and I actually played through this thing. And the reason I like this as a co-op game is it's not an asymmetric game. We're not doing different things, but we're responsible. Like, you end up splitting off from your teammate, and they're responsible for succeeding at their part, and you're responsible for succeeding at your part. And you can kind of crossfire once in a while and help each other out. But the mechanics of it are just genius, in my opinion. You know, it's not asymmetrical, but it's unique. Just try it out. I would say just try it out. Devil's Cartel.
Wow, I did not see Army of Two coming at all. The next one, number 2, I think the next 2 will not be a surprise, and I would be shocked if all of us didn't have the same number 1. But my number 2 is the Gears of War series in general. You know, any one of them, pick one, and you're gonna have a great time playing co-op. Whether it be playing the single-player campaign, which is designed to play co-op, because there are times where you can go off to 2 different paths, which is awesome. You know,
Yep.
you go left, I go right, and they're completely different adventures. You end up in the same place, but it's a lot of fun. Or the horde mode, that's always a great time. You know, you got
Yeah.
2 hours to kill with a friend, turn on some gears, you got 2 hours gone within seconds, it feels like. Matt, what was your number 2?
My number 2 is Left 4 Dead. So I think, I mean, it's a co-op game. It's meant to be played with people, but I think that game kind of came out around the time where, I mean, obviously we were playing games online because it was on the 360, but it was still a time when we were able to get together more and play. So I think we had a lot of good memories playing that together, just in a small setting, same TV, and it's great fun.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I disagree with your statement on Super Nintendo with the most fun you'll have, because my number 2 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles:
Oh.
Turtles in Time.
Well, that's Sega. You could do that Sega,
Ooh.
though.
And that's
Wow.
that's if you're gonna ask me, hey, I have a Super Nintendo, what kind of fun can I have with a friend? I'm saying Turtles in Time. I mean, I can see your point
I'm saying or
But
Sega on that
at
one.
the same time. Yeah, so Turtles in Time, my number 2.
My number 1, no shock, Left 4 Dead 2. I thought this would have been a three-peat for Left 4 Dead across the board, but Matt kind of
Almost,
ruined that
almost.
one. But yeah, Left 4 Dead 2, obviously. I mean, if you've ever played it, you know exactly what I'm talking about and what Matt was saying. So, Matt, what is your number 1? I don't know.
It should be.
You've been shocking me every week with your lists here.
I'm happy for that. It's the same as your number 2, Gears of War. I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I've always been. I know we all love Gears of War, but I've always, I think, been the biggest fan of Gears of War out of all of us. So that game just really resonated with me, and especially since they incorporated horde mode, I countless hours into that game. So that's an amazing co-op game, couch co-op game.
Yeah. Dave?
So I know what you guys expected of me. It's
Uh-oh.
obviously Left 4 Dead 2 and Left 4 Dead because I mean, what better way to play 8-player split screen, right, than Left 4 Dead 2?
No,
But-
you could get 16 now. You could get 16.
You
They
get
patched
16.
it.
Maybe even
Is it
24.
32? Is it 32 now? So, but I decided to kind of throw a curveball at you guys, and although Left 4 Dead 2 is the obvious choice, and please go play that game if you haven't played it yet, I'm gonna say Mario 3D World is my number 1 for today. And it's simply because I played it with many different people that came over. It's almost like a tech demo for the Wii U. And my wife and I played through the entire game and the extra bonus levels. I know that I talked to Matt about him and his soon-to-be wife playing through all the levels together and having a great time. And much to what he said earlier, gaming and hanging out with your significant other doesn't have to be 2 mutually exclusive things. And both of us really enjoyed playing that game. So I really don't know who wouldn't enjoy that game. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say Mario 3D World.
Yeah.
Great choice.
Honorable mention, I would say, it goes to Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. My wife and I
Yeah.
played that game together because one of you are Donkey Kong, one of you is Diddy Kong, and it works perfectly.
Right,
So,
right.
That would be an honorable mention. So that is episode 3 of the LAN Partners podcast. Again, find us Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube. You know, we're all over. let us know what you think of the episode. If you have a list idea, questions, any sort of suggestions, or a game you want to hear our opinions on, please let us know. We would love to hear from our listeners. Thanks again for listening.